Hey everyone, so this is going to be by far the most personal video, not only on my channel, but any of my sports platforms that I've ever been on, because it not only involves a team that I like, but it involves a school that I go to, and just something that has totally transformed me as a person, and I'm talking about Northwestern University, and specifically their football program, which really doesn't get a lot of national headlines, but over the past few days has really picked up steam with this entire hazing investigation, and everything that's coming out from former players who remain to stay anonymous from both sides. And I really don't want to get into the ins and outs of that, but I really want to talk about my reaction to everything going on and what I think is next for not only Northwestern football, but Northwestern athletics. And like I said, this is a really personal video for me, and I really hope not only people in the Northwestern community here could listen to this, but just people in general, and just hear not only from a sports journalist, but a sports fan and someone who has spent a lot of time around this program, just thinks. So first, let's talk about what's happened. So Northwestern football has had a really tumultuous past year, from going 1-11 after winning their first game in Ireland against Nebraska and losing the 11 straight after that, to when this hazing investigation started in November, to what came out earlier this week that former players, whistleblowers, and a lot of stuff started coming out about Northwestern football. And again, I'm not going to go into it because I really don't want to go into what the hazing was. But the main thing that came out of it was whether Pat Fitzgerald, who has been the Northwestern head coach since 2006, undisputed best head coach in Northwestern football history, maybe even one of the best players. He was two-time All-Big Ten, consensus All-American, totally transformed Northwestern football. The question was whether he knew about it. And there were accounts from both sides saying, yes, he absolutely knew about it, and there were others saying no. And then, about an hour ago, Pat Fitzgerald was fired, let go, and now Northwestern searches for their first head coach since 2006. And so that's what's happened up to this moment. And so I just wanted to go through Pat Fitzgerald's career very fast to show how impactful he was to this Northwestern football program. So in the mid-1990s, Fitzgerald was a linebacker at Northwestern, and Northwestern was not a successful football program at all. He was part of a 10-1 regular season team in 1995 and won the Rose Bowl in 96, Northwestern's second ever bowl win. The next season, Northwestern made their second straight Big Ten championship, and NU won the Citrus Bowl. Third bowl win in team history. In Fitzgerald's playing career, like I said, he was twice named Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, a two-time consensus All-American. He was the 15th Northwestern player to ever be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. And you could see how great of a player he was. But as a coach, he was one of the most notable coaches in Northwestern, not only Northwestern football history. Northwestern football history is number one. Northwestern sports, though, he might even be number one. So he was Northwestern's head coach in 2006, and while it got off to a rough start from around 2006 to 2012, he led the Wildcats to 10 bowl games. And before he became head coach, the Wildcats only reached 6 bowl games in 123 football seasons. And you could just tell, as someone who spent a lot of time around the football program, whether just as a student or someone that works for Inside NU, you could really tell the impact he had in the Northwestern community and how much respect he had for not only Northwestern journalists, but just Northwestern and Evanston and everyone around it. Whenever I went to a press conference with him, whether it was to prep for a game or after a game, I remember one in particular in Minnesota when Northwestern got absolutely slapped. They lost, I want to say, 38-3 to Minnesota in their backup quarterback, and Fitzgerald, the first thing he said and the last thing he said, I want to thank everyone who came up to Minnesota in the cold that was covering us, and I really just appreciate you guys, and I know we're going through a tough time. And Fitzgerald really had a mainstay in the Northwestern community. I wasn't at the Northwestern basketball round of 64 game, but people that were said that Fitzgerald showed up to a social before, and you could just feel the aroma in the air and how much he brought. He always brought this positivity to the Northwestern community. He was the most popular man on campus, even when Northwestern was having their bad seasons, and you could really tell how much he meant to the community and the football program. And as a student journalist, to me, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of people that say that. And with that being said, the hazing investigation puts a lot on his resume, and I think it just puts a whole cloud over his entire legacy that he built up at a school that's not known for football. Northwestern is, and I'll get to this more later, but Northwestern's always been in an uphill battle in the Big Ten and in college football. They're one of the smallest Power 5 schools. They're a private school. It makes it harder for athletes to go to, and they're competing with the ranks of Michigan, Ohio State, and all these guys. I know they're in the Big Ten West, but still. And now Fitzgerald totally transformed that program. He gave that program a culture, and now it's going to be remembered for this hazing incident, no matter how much he was involved or not. And now I just want to talk about a few other things. So first, was it the right thing to do? Because I've seen a lot of things going around about it. Yes, it was the right thing to do. I understand how much Pat Fitzgerald meant to Northwestern football and Northwestern sports, and I am one of the most upset people out there that he is no longer there, because I do think he's one of the best coaches that the Big Ten has seen. It was the right thing to do. It does not matter how good Pat Fitzgerald was as a head coach. This will be his legacy, the hazing, because of what's going on. He will be remembered as one of the better Northwestern head coaches and stuff, but there will always be this asterisk next to his legacy, and he was fired because of what's going on. And you could tell just with what's going on and stuff, and people saying all these things, whether Fitzgerald knew or he didn't know this was happening in the program, and that makes him accountable. Because this Northwestern program, until a few months ago, I was totally under the impression that even when during the losing seasons, they were maintaining their culture, all the players were proud to be there, and they all played for Pat Fitzgerald, and they played for those coaches. And it just makes Fitzgerald's legacy a lot more complicated for Northwestern. And moving forward, I don't know. I do not think Pat Fitzgerald will be coaching a college football team for a while. I think a lot of teams are going to stay away from him, at least until details of this investigation come out even more. But let's just talk more about Northwestern. So that's all about Fitzgerald. What's next for Northwestern football? So first, a major change is coming, and it's an uphill battle. No matter what happened with Pat Fitzgerald, he was responsible. He has to be held accountable, and he knows that, and that's why Northwestern made the decision. A few days ago, Michael Schill, who's the president of Northwestern, gave Fitzgerald a 2-week suspension, and he quickly aired on that, and now he's fired. And so now Northwestern is looking down a pretty dark tunnel, and it's for a few reasons. One, Northwestern's already the smallest school in the Big Ten, like I said. Northwestern is the smallest school in the Big Ten by around 12,000 students. I couldn't tell you the second one, but they are, Northwestern has an undergraduate body of 8,000. Every other school has above 17,000, I'm pretty sure. And Northwestern just had a pretty decent transfer class come in for football. They had A.J. Henning, who was a returner from Michigan, come in. He was going to be their wideout one. And they had brought in Ben Bryant, who started a lot for Cincinnati last year, who went 9-3. And now those are in question. There's a lot of players in question. There's going to be some transfers. And if you look around the Big Ten has a lot of mainstay coaches, right? Jim Harbaugh is a mainstay. Mel Tucker, James Franklin, P.J. Fleck, Ryan Day, Brett Bielema, Lincoln Riley, and Chip Kelly are entering the Big Ten next year with USC and UCLA. And Northwestern is the smallest football program and faces that uphill battle. And now they need to find a coach to compete with that. And you add in the hazing aroma, and you add in the fact that they won 4 games since 2020. And it just makes it a very hard fit. It makes it a very uphill battle, like I'm saying. And there will be transfers, like I said. There might also be some hope, because no matter what, Northwestern is a Power 5 football team playing in a conference that keeps on getting bigger and bigger. And I know a lot of people are going to say Northwestern shouldn't be in the Big Ten because of their size or their success. That's not true. Northwestern is a Big Ten football team, and they were one of the more successful Big Ten football teams in the past decade. Northwestern has made more Big Ten championships in the past decade than over half of the Big Ten teams. And yes, you could say, oh, that's because of the Big Ten West and the Big Ten East being asymmetrical. But then why wasn't Illinois making the Big Ten championships? Why wasn't Purdue? Why, I guess Wisconsin made some, but why weren't these other teams? It was because of Pat Fitzgerald and the culture he had in Northwestern, and people bought into this culture. And this Northwestern football squad is not one that should be taken lightly, because they've generated pro players under Pat Fitzgerald. In the past decade, look at the first-round picks they've had. Peter Skoronski in the most recent draft, Greg Newsome, Sean Slater. There are plenty more picks. Northwestern had 4 draft picks this class. That's more than half the Big Ten teams. And so Northwestern's doing something right. And it makes it more difficult to put into words because of the whole hazing investigation. That really leaves a dark cloud over the entire thing that I don't really want to get into the hazing. But just moving back for a second, with all that Pat Fitzgerald has done for this program, he has to be remembered as one of the better coaches in Northwestern history, and probably the best head coach in Northwestern history. But this is something you can't forget. It doesn't matter how much he knew, because it was happening in the program, according to these anonymous players. And there are players such as Greg Newsome, who was a first-round pick, and Ryan Helinski, who's still a quarterback on the roster. I had a class with him in the winter. They're saying this didn't happen, but some players are saying it's happening, and right now, and with all that's happening, if Pat Fitzgerald didn't know about it, it was still happening in his football program, and that's a really hard thing. So Northwestern needs to clean the slate on it. And now, let's just talk about one more thing. What does this mean for Northwestern athletics in general? Because football is far and away the most popular sport in America, and college football is probably the most popular college sport. Yes, college basketball is up there too, but this football team is what Northwestern revolves around a lot of the time. And not only Northwestern, a lot of schools, they generate the most money at most schools. Northwestern just funded the Ryan family just gave Northwestern $800 million, and Northwestern's building a new football stadium to replace Ryan Field. What does this mean for Northwestern athletics? Northwestern Athletics just had a very, very good year. Outside of the football team that went 1-11 and the baseball team who was god-awful, and I don't even want to get into the baseball team. That could be another video. Northwestern Athletics had a very good year. The basketball team made the NCAA tournament and the round of 32 for the second time in their history and finished the highest they ever have in the Big Ten. The field hockey team made their second straight NCAA championship. Yes, they lost to UNC, but they made it. Northwestern softball almost made the College World Series. They made the College Football World Series last year. They are a really good team. And Northwestern lacrosse just won their 8th national championship ever. And so this is a really good year for Northwestern Athletics, and I'm leaving out the fencing team who had a very good year, and I'm probably leaving out a few others too, but this is just mainly about the stuff I cover. Now to a national audience, Northwestern looks like an athletic program that's not only facing an uphill battle with all this stuff, but it's just a smear on what is a very niche community and a very niche program, and it generates a lot of good athletes. And over the past year, as a sports journalist, someone who works for Inside NU and has formed really good relationships with a lot of the athletes and spent a lot of time around a lot of the programs, it just leaves a smear on a lot of what's going on. And now Northwestern Athletics should be remembered for this. So I urge everyone watching this video, this is a football thing. And I know Northwestern Athletics should be combined as one thing, but what happened in football does not mean that these other athletes that have built on their legacy have not been great throughout their entire Northwestern career. And it hurts because as someone who goes to Northwestern and this is what I'm going to finish with. As someone that has gone to Northwestern for 2 years now, it has absolutely transformed me as a person. And I know everyone says this about their school, but Northwestern is one of the best schools in America. And I fully believe that. And I would never be able to do this sports journalism if I wasn't there. And I've spent a lot of time around a lot of athletes and a lot of coaches, including Pat Fitzgerald, who is no longer the Northwestern coach. And I've had a few bad conversations, but I've never had bad conversations. And this comes out, it's really heartbreaking to see. And the biggest thing that comes to mind, accountability, responsibility, and what's next. And the answer to what's next is we don't know. I couldn't tell you what's next. What I just spewed about for 12 minutes, it could be pure speculation. It's just someone who's a sports journalist. And as things keep going out in this story, I'm going to be posting more stuff on my Twitter, on my Instagram threads. Hopefully I'll make more videos if something really big comes out. And I urge everyone, if I'm not active, go look at Inside NU. It's the best place for Northwestern sports. The editors-in-chief, I have a great relationship with them, and they really know what's going on. So go to them for all the content. But it's been a really dark few days for Northwestern sports and Northwestern football, and this is just what I had to say. I had to get my reaction out there. So more coming soon, and always go Cats.